wonderful. As expected, this morning, Joe Manchin stated he could not vote for the people for the part of the Build Back Better that would actually help the average working person. And veterans, by the way, because that part was supposed to also help veterans. So if he ever says thank you for your service, tell him to go fuck himself. He's a fascist. I don't really, he's a bigot and a fascist. I can say that because of his actions. Fascist because he is using state power to line his own pockets. Bigot because of the things that he has said. And to the last video where he was with Senator Warnock, Senator Warnock put his hand in the middle of his chest and tried to push him off. And he saw the press. And he's like, "Oh, we're buddies," which is basically a, a dog whistle back home. I can screw over this dummy. That was what's what that was. As soon as I saw it, so I knew that the negotiations were not real. They're not ongoing. They haven't been once the leverage was lost. Farron Cousins made an excellent point and someone I agree with, since he is not acting as a Democrat. There's a difference, as Bernie Sanders said, there's a difference between having disagreements, but instead of trying to completely tank it. Him and Kristen Sinema, as you know, when the part that only affected and helped European American men or big corporations on the infrastructure was done. Kristen Sinema was wearing a red 1950 styles dress, which is basically saying I am being, when there's the quote, the Republicans who are not conservative. Conservatism is completely something different than what's been going on. This is proto-fascism, neo-fascism at present. Just that was a signaling to them. Now it's just something she's done before. When she was getting elected, she foxified her hair. So this is her normal play. So it was not out of anything different. And the reason I say bigot is with Manchin and even possibly Cinema is the main thing I've noticed about bigotry is a person who is a bigot. What they do is they use the other to take the cash and then give the racists the emotion. So the racists get the emotion of, oh, look, meanwhile, he gets to keep lining his pockets, throwing the country under the bus, tanking the economy, even though we're trying to slow land it because Trump's whole thing, 4 years of Trump was designed, because you're always 4 years, 4 years behind, was to tank the economy so that way he can come up with an excuse. Persons such as Trump do not exist. What they do is they always have the dialectic and they try to push the poles as far away as possible so that way that they can be in the center of those two poles. It's not actually all that brilliant. It's just you have to understand it from a structural position. That's how they think all the time because they don't exist. They're basically a projection of a small child, or in his case, what's left of a child. So as mentioned, he's basically a 6-year-old. The situation then has now. Before I go, let me explain. There was when I was in by the falls. What were they called? Again, whatever. Hazard Falls, whatever. Over in West Virginia. And I was coming back from the falls. Was walking to my campsite, and it was up a dirt road. This white truck comes rolling down the hill, and it stops. I counted 4 or 5 guys in the back of the truck, in the front of the truck. Now, at the time, as soon as I saw them, I thought about that gentleman in Texas who was dragged to his death because they did the whole look of, you know, try to be intimidating. And I looked, okay, looked at the truck, checked, no shotgun in the back. Remember, I grew up in the South. I'm used to seeing the shotgun in the back window. Looked at these 5 young gentlemen, and I went, okay, in my mind, I'll have to kill 2 of you because I'm not going to die here without taking 2 of you out. So I immediately formed a plan in my mind. I knew if the gentleman in the driver's seat made a move, I'd have to run, close the gap, as you've seen me do. I tend to not to run backwards. Close the gap, hit them, have to then get to the other side, snap that guy's neck as he was getting out, slow them down, and take out two. All I had on me was absolutely nothing. So it would have to be pure hand to hand. But that was in West Virginia. That is the mindset of what who he's trying, who Manchin is trying to appease the bigots, the racists, get the racists all hopped up. There was another place in Virginia, right on the West Virginia border, Newcastle, which was a Klan town. Same thing. Yeah, walking in the store, they're all upset seeing me there. It was interesting to watch the vibe. And they would cut off their nose to spite their face, just just like some African Americans would. But that's where the situation is. He's fucking over his people, trying to blame it on, saying, "Well, look, I stopped those Negroes." Ha 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 ha. Meanwhile, he knows that he's keeping his people poor. He's screwing over the vets in the state because the VA needs more money to take care of all these vets over the years. Destroying the child tax credit, so now they're his kids. And remember, he did that purposely because the child tax credit, his watered down version, removed it for the kids that were under 60,000. So basically, it was only the people who got the child tax credit didn't fucking need it. So he's purposely making his people poor. Tristan Cinema, same thing. Now we also know that they're both speaking for the Republicans, so to speak, because the Republicans, as Mitch McConnell is starting to realize with the January 6th committee, he's fucked. But under the Constitution, we'll get to that in a bit. You know, he's screwed because if I don't say if, when it is proven and it is shown, and that the 45th president of the United States directed and or the people who directed the people who marched onto the Capitol and stepped foot on the floor of the House and Senate believe that they were acting under the orders of Donald J. Trump and that it was more than just a spur of the moment thing. Even if it was a spur of the moment thing, it doesn't matter. But the fact it is, it wasn't a spur, and if it's proven with all the data that it wasn't a spur of the moment thing, the House, under the Constitution, has the right and obligation to impeach all the Republican senators who did not stand for the Constitution by impeaching Donald Trump. Especially if it is then shown within the situation there were persons in the Senate who had helped the former president. By not removing the president for attempting a coup, Mitch McConnell and all the Republicans who did not vote to remove the president, 45th president of the United States, are in contempt of the Constitution, which means they're also in contempt of Congress because that is their job. And so, therefore, they should be impeached and also removed from the Senate. It is a republic if we can keep it. Right now, Murdoch, who is basically, as far as I'm concerned, very close to being a traitor to Western civilization, by, and he's definitely a traitor to secularism, which means he's a traitor to the Constitution. It's just sucking off the teat of his own power that he is a fascist. He's destroying Australia, he's destroying Britain, and he's destroying America with his propaganda outlet that sells fear for advertising. So is Newsmax and OAN, same thing. They just keep hammering that amygdala. of their supporters. Right now, I'm looking at the meme set, and there was this one video that said, "Oh, smart people only Google things." Well, that's the same thing as when you were at the university before Google, as going to the fucking library. Smart people know how to use the library. You do know how to use the library, right? You know how to cross-reference. You learn logic to do cross-referencing ideas. You know how to find information and find and verify that information. Smart people do. So yeah, same difference. But really smart people know how to really use Google and still do multiple cross-referencings. But the main thing about it is it's coming from the feminine, and the feminine is trying to, which is funny. They're actually doing what I said, protecting their men, holding up their fragile egos, but in a not healthy way, because it's usually coming from your Caucasoid females, of American Caucasoid females. Because there's also things where Fox News has been obliquely attacking these. So I'm realistically watching. This has been a very interesting journey to see this attacking what I'm saying, especially when Tucker Carlson is talking about Trustafarians in Montana, which is quite hilarious. Seeing the guy has stated he lived in the castle looking over the moat, were some of his words. Yeah, the biggest Trustafarian there is. Trust fund kid who doesn't think he has to actually have accountability for his blatant destruction of America, of the United States, and the fact that all these people are talking about the Constitution, but they don't know or have probably even read the Constitution, and they're doing everything counter to that Constitution. Another figures we're seeing, the former president was talking about evangelicals. The evangelicals are trying to start World War III. That is what they're trying to do. They're so hardcore trying to start World War III, trying to instigate something with Iran, trying. It's just ridiculous. Trying to destroy the country because they are against secularism. And I was reading the just today, Ilhan Omar. Now I'm very much not a fan of her. I'll be real, because she has yet to say she believes and she will stand up for the Constitution and secularism. Now she keeps talking about the anti-Muslim bigotry and all that. Yeah, that's wrong. I'm not going to say it's not, but when she does not stand up for the rights of the individual, she is saying to the all around the world, to those little girls, especially she was talking about chicks wearing hijab in America, whatever. Her words are affecting these little girls in Indonesia who got killed because some dudes were jealous that she was going to school, by not defending her rights to be her own self, to her own person. She's full of shit, as far as I'm concerned. She's not defending those women in Afghanistan who are trying to learn math and have to do it in secret, or in Sudan. Oh, not Sudan. Or North Africa. Same shit, different pile. Or even over machismo in South America. So while the anti-Muslim bigotry is incorrect and is not right, as a secularist, as a person who believes in the Constitution, her not standing up for the Constitution is just as bad, if not worse. In the upcoming week, right now, we are about to turn into a fascist state. They have even said, even with Mitt Romney talking about people voluntarily leaving and all this other crap, they're not just talking about people who have come here and Hispanics, they're talking about African Americans, they're talking about everything. They're trying to do white nationalism is neo fascism. Fascism is the conjoining of the state and business power, which we're pretty much almost already there, anyways. And that's what Manchin does not want to give up. And Sinema. She's just waiting for her golden parachute. golden something, and it's what's going on. And then they're getting all this money, $1 billion, to keep the American people, from the average worker, from getting their cut, from helping small businesses, people go after their own chance at the American dream, to use the power of the state. You're basically being no more than the jackasses that took over, the cartels that have taken over Mexico and Central America, and are trying to take over California. Same shit, different pile. This next week is, the thing about this next week is the filibuster. Everything talks about the filibuster, which was a rule that was put in by the Senate, supposedly, but to foster communication. Well, first off, no one lives there, as this one person who was talking about it, who's a scholar on the situation. Nobody lives there, and the senators and representatives don't live in D.C. anymore. There isn't any D.C. housing for federal officials, which is BS. It should be. They should live in D.C. They should have bring their kids to D.C. Like if you are stationed someplace overseas, in the military, if you're stationed, you're serving, you're going to get housing or a stipend for that housing. It should be the same thing for the senators and the House of Representatives, and so that they live in this area and they get to know each other. Two, that was all Newt Gingrich. See, people who have such hate, they have to have segregation because they can't let you people know this person, the person that they're attacking is actually not a bad person. I saw that directly with, and we know that is a universal way because I saw that directly within the situation I was dealing with, I was still dealing with recently, as Ms. Lewis was constantly trying to get everybody to think I was the bad guy and that Mr. Briscoe was the good guy, and we have now known by his actions it is the exact opposite, and she knew that it was the exact opposite. So what's going to happen is we're seeing what's going on with voting rights. Bannon has stated he's a neo-fascist. Miller is a neo-fascist. We know these people have stated what they're going to do, and they're doing everything they can to do it. And it will not stop here in the United States. Turkey is waiting to see what happens in the United States. And if it goes to chaos, they're heading towards Greece. They're going to start taking over Cyprus, and they're going to just start rolling up on the Western civilization. They'll be backed by China, by Russia as they go into Ukraine because now they're controlling these straits through through into the Black Sea, which is the warm water port. China will be enjoying that because now they can use the Belt and Road all the way into Europe, which pulls all trade towards China. They have already gotten Kenya to give up their sovereignty by saying that they will use their Chinese law, which means they are now a, even if they quote a sovereign country, by changing their law to Chinese, they no longer have their own sovereignty. Manchin reminds me, or I view very much similar to that East African country that just got oil. It's one in the pit of Africa. Trevor Noah had a video on it. It was quite interesting. It's the same thing. He has money, makes his people poor. The exact same thing. He's acting like like an African dictator. Manchin is. Also, China's acting like a payday lender to South America and Africa. We are getting squeezed out around the world. We're talking shit and we're squeezing out we're getting squeezed out. And then we ship all of our jobs overseas and we're turning ourselves into a third world country. And our senators are doing it to us because they're just seeing how much money they can make as opposed to how much money they can help their other people and make more money. because the stock market is being pumped up with false cash as it's diverged from Main Street by a lot. While all these may not seem connected, they all are very much connected. Free trade. Yeah, these neo-fascists are not conservatives. They're not individual rights because they want to take away other people's rights. A conservative wants to stand up for an individual right to be an individual. You know, being in a union is, from my perspective, quite conservative as long as as long as it's done in good faith. They had lost that over in the 70s, and then Reagan broke the unions, and yeah, kind of probably needed a bit of that. But to the point where they are now, it's now destroying everything because it's not just about not being a union. It's about you can't. It's about pretty much turning workers into slaves. We're seeing that with Starbucks. There's one light. uh, One or two. I think last I checked was only one store had finished voting. I haven't checked back to unionize. Now Starbucks will pull the full force of a $1 billion company to attack maybe 20 people. Here's the thing, because what they're afraid of is as soon as, because this is the reason that one of the older persons that was there is like, look, they're doing the old BS of saying, hey, you got these things, but if you don't do this, then, well, not my problem. Or as soon as the chick would get, so you have these, yeah, we got great benefits, but as soon as you get close to that the number to get those benefits, well, we're going to start calling you back. That's BS. That's just marketing at that point, and it goes against the brand promise. And then they're using fear at the other stores. They're saying, well, at least you got a little bit of a good deal. You don't want to lose it. And we know by science that people are more afraid to lose what they have than to gain a backbone and get what they should have. Progress is made by those who have courage. And I've stated those persons at Starbucks have 6 months, so what should they do? They should go on to Reddit and state this is what we think. They should take every person in the store who voted and not voted should say, okay, these are the 10 things we love about Starbucks. These are the 10 things we can't stand. And then combine those into the 10 things that they believe in and the 10 things they don't believe in. Put it on Reddit and then ask for help. Try to get other Starbucks stores, which is what's going to be they're most afraid of. So other Starbucks stores throughout the country and throughout the states unionizing as well. But in this case, I believe they should unionize, especially United Food Workers Union, because Starbucks is not keeping to the brand promise, and that brand promise yields to when into the product on the back end, because it creates brand loyalty. It was the brand loyalty of the brand product of paying $5 for a freaking cup of coffee, $10 per shot. By the time you're going in and out, and the constant return value of the customer, which actually creates the base. Should be coming up to the point where it's no longer a growth company; it is just a profit company. It makes profits, and should be probably dividend paying. I haven't looked right now, but if it should be. And in order for it to be dividend paying, it needs to be more like McDonald's, even more so, but because it's a corporate neighborhood store, so to speak. And any neighborhood store knows that it's all about returning customers. And that brand promise keeps those returning customers because you have your frontline workers who are bringing brand value to those customers, and they want to stay there 20, 30 years. But then the corporate will then say, well, you're making too much money, but they're also bringing in more brand value, higher efficiencies, things like that. This whole thing that we've gotten to where it's always uh, pump and dump and get people out and destroy them, that's psychopathic. That's incompetence. And as we become more incompetent, we have to start doing more fake money, printing more money and dumping more money into the stock market, which is a false economy. Right now, Fox News is. I just saw one person I know was talking about inflation, blah blah blah. Well, if the Build Back Better would have reduced that inflationary pressure on these working families. Manchin wants that inflationary pressure so that way he can control them, keep them poor, just like they did to their grandparents in the coal mines and things like that. But hey, you can hate the Negro. I'll take your cash. That's what he says to them. That's what he's doing. And this is, once again, the argument uses that to create anger, keep the anger and hate. The filibuster needs to be reformed back to where it was supposed to be because it gets rid of these polarizations. So what we need this week, Senator Schumer needs to bring both the bill, finish off the Build Back Better. Say screw it. This is what we want. Just laundry list it because it's not going to pass. Put everything you want on it. It's like this is what we want. If pie in the sky, this is what we'd want. Dump it all in there. Screw Manchin and Sinema because they don't, and get to them in a second. Do the bill because he's not also the thing he's also not going to do. No matter what he says, he's not also going to vote for any types of changes to the filibuster. He's been stalling for that forever as well. He doesn't care about that. The filibuster, as he knows, as a Southern Dixiecrat, because he's a Dixiecrat, he does not want the filibuster changed. He loves it. Him and Sinema. She's waiting for a golden parachute. So bring both of them to the floor. Bring the voting rights and the and the and the and the Build Back Better to the floor. If you can get it with the change of the filibuster, even better. Let's see if he's a hypocrite, which most persons like him are. Most bigots are hypocrites, absolute hypocrites. So are a lot of personally, some people would say a lot of evangelicals are hypocrites as well, but that's not for me to get into. So let's bring it to the floor. Or I shouldn't say just evangelicals, people who tend to say they're super religious without believing, who've lost their ways, believing that other people have their right to their own religion. And it's as Kant said, it is the golden rule. Those who do not who go against the golden rule are hypocrites. I don't care what sect or whatever you believe in. If you cannot see the light in others and then talk about whatever religion or belief you have, that to me is a hypocrite. That's just a personal belief. So we'll see. First, press Manchin to see if if he stalls, if he really believes in the truth of filibuster, he'll get it done by within this week, which he won't because I just said that. Because he has to be a little brat. See, that's how they work. You say tomato, I must say tomato. That means to be tough, right? Eye roll, whatever. So he's going to do that. He's not going to put anything that's filibuster to where it really actually is a filibuster reform, because it's actually been changed from what it was originally to this thing that's not, especially the pocket filibuster, which gives cowards shielding so they don't have to. The pocket filibusters where they just send an email. Get rid of the pocket filibuster for these two things at least. Put it on the floor. Put it on the floor. Bring it to a vote. I want to see, people need to see these senators vote against their self-interest. Vote against the people's self-interest and to show that they do not work for them. Both on voting rights, because Manchin doesn't want voting rights either. Because if voting rights were okay, the districts were drawn proportionate to the amount of of the voter registration. So if you have a state with 60% voting of Republicans and 40% Democrats, the districts would have to be that way, or 40% Democrats and 40% Republicans and 20% independents. The districts would have to be that way, be drawn that way in today's terms. They don't want that because there's another thing. As this one gentleman was talking about, because he's trying to put me into a into a trap. I end up turning the tables on him because his arguments were pretty weak. But about electoral college, and he was like, because you have the far left talking about get rid of the electoral college, and I was like, man, it was really designed specifically because it gave the rural areas representation over outsized representation, mind you, but it still gives them representation. If there was anything, I think it should be switched to winner take most, not winner take all, because it's over outsized right now to where these smaller states with no small populations are getting way too much power, and which is just as bad as these larger states with high populations having too much power over the smaller states. And it's just purely fair because there's a lot more Democrats or persons who are a little more liberal or not as just these extreme far right hateful people in this country. But the politics have been driven, especially since Newt Gingrich, especially since Nixon, to these 1, 3, maybe 4% max, especially on the far right. These are people are fascist. They are trying to create a dictatorship, and they are unconstitutional. And the moment our adversaries see this, they're going to move. And we can beat our chest and say how big our balls are and all this, our gonads, whatever. Say how they don't give a crap. And they spit on the graves of all those service members around the world. Go out, fight for democracy, come home, there's not a job. And there's no opportunity because the politicians are too corrupt. All politicians should be a little corrupt, but to the point where they don't even have to listen to anybody. No, that's just pure crap. That's a third world country. That's where we're heading towards civil war. If we don't get our head out of our ass. And it won't be just the United States. But that's what the evangelicals want. Jesus is coming. Create as much darkness as we can. Screw you, I'm getting raptured. Why would Jesus want to come to a world like that? If you think it's a thing, a person. Doesn't make any sense to me. That's why I'm slowly working my way through the Bible again. I haven't read it for years. Like, fully read it. But to read it again through different eyes is definitely interesting. It's been very, very illuminating. So, you know, whoever wins the quantum race, because there's no human infrastructure, it's the people. Because if you don't have people that are producing, we'll get kicked in the teeth. You know, This is what they're doing. They're destroying everything. Lest they can only the hard infrastructure was passed, and that was because it just serves, you quote, European American men who have passed their companies down from generations. Doesn't serve the people. Doesn't give opportunity for the tumble. Weakens us internally. There's levers of the Great Society that they want to get rid of. And then you get to play cutesy. Well, it's just those people over there. You keep smoking that. When you take away the rights of one, you've taken away the rights of all.